Hey folks, Dr. Mike Israetel here for Renaissance Periodization, Healthy Eating Made Simple, video number 4, Stabilizing Meal Size and Number. Where did we leave off last time? Hopefully you've watched videos number 1, 2, and 3 from this series. Make a whole lot of sense, more sense if you have, so give those a look if you have some time. In those videos, we already established a lot of really good stuff for a healthy eating ability and a healthy eating habit. First, you already know how to choose mostly healthy foods. Second, you know how to make balanced meals with those foods. And lastly, you know how to count the macros in those balanced foods in those meals and through the day. So you're really, really well on your way. Now it's just a little bit of fine tuning. The next step here is to standardize the intake just a bit by shooting for a couple of things, mostly to do with meal structure. First is you want to shoot for a roughly similar number of meals every day. That doesn't mean you do 3 meals every day, 4 or 5 every single day, but maybe 3 to 5 meals in most days is a good idea. Some days you eat 3, some days 4, some days 5, something like that. It's totally fine if it's all the same, but in that rough range. What we don't want you to do is eat like 12 meals one day and 1 meal another day. That tends to not be really good for habit, and a lot of people that try really variable meal schedules like that, more of them tend to fail on sticking to a healthy eating plan because things are just so different every time. So once you've got the number of meals you want to eat per day, you want to eat in a relatively similar schedule on most days. Now, your schedule on weekends could be quite different from your weekly schedule, and your weekly schedule could be a little bit different based on when you have work, when you have to pick up the kids, so on and so forth, but you want to shoot for rough times for most of your meals, at least a dependable schedule. For example, you could have breakfast at roughly 7 a.m., just an example, right? Lunch at 12, dinner at 6, and an evening snack at 10. That roughly when you eat your meals, it's been shown that people that have their meals relatively well planned out and eat at roughly the same times, on average, every day or so, they just tend to have better success with their diets, and they tend to eat healthy in the long term with just less intellectual overhead of having to be like, when do I eat today? If you know, it's really, really good. Now, you can also do yourself a huge service for the long term by simplifying your meals. You don't have to do this part, but it's a real big advantage for most people. What do we mean by simplifying? You choose 2 to 4 basic options of lean protein choices like some chicken or some fish or some turkey, something like that. Veggie combinations, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, lettuce, etc. Healthy carbs, brown rice, pasta, oats, maybe some fruit options, and some healthy fats. You got olive oil, you got your handful of almonds, you got your nut butter. Those are your go-to options. If you choose simple foods like that, and you put them into combinations, of course you can use more if you'd like. But if you just stick simply, and if you consider cooking and meal prepping in bulk using Tupperware, you can, for some number of meal prep amount of effort, you can get the return that it's much more stable and much higher. You don't have to think about it as much. You're doing a really great job with your meals. And after bulk prepping your meals, or maybe not all of them, but most of them, you got at least your lunches and dinners or your breakfast and lunches all planned out for the week. And twice a week, maybe you cook them and put them in Tupperware with the basic foods that aren't rocket science to cook. You figure out which combinations are tasty. You're off to an easier ability to make that kind of eating habitual. And once it's habit, someone's going to ask you man, you eat so healthy, it must take a lot of willpower. And you're going to be like, willpower, or just something I do, You're in the habit of walking to your mailbox every other morning and getting the mail. It's not exactly a Herculean effort. Eating healthy can be just like this if you make it easy on yourself. Shameless plug, the RP Diet app, which is the app that this company has made, does all this for you and lets you have some flexibility in there too, but it's kind of like a coach that tells you hey, you should be eating this, at this. And you can choose the foods and it automatically filters all this through the meals and everything. It's a pretty advanced tool. It's not for everyone, and it's totally cool if you go on your own. But if you really need some help here and you just want a computer to tell you what to do and coach you up, give that a shot. Terrible, shameless plug commercial right in the middle of this informative video. Now, whether you use the RP Diet app or not, no big deal at all. The next step, once you have standardized your meal times and how many meals you eat per day, and hopefully have made your meals a little bit more modular in the sense that you know your go-to protein sources, you know your go-to carbs. It's not rocket science. You're not trying to reinvent the wheel every time. At this point, your daily macros will be very similar from day to day to day to day versus before when you knew roughly your daily macros, but maybe they changed wildly because sometimes you have a big meal, sometimes a little meal. This is going to be much more stable. You're getting just a little bit more regular with your intake. You are eating enough food to have plenty of energy and not be hungry. We're not going to do a fat loss phase just yet. And you know really well how much food you're eating. And because of the standardization, you can repeat and repeat and repeat that roughly same amount of food with macros day in and day out, week in and week out, because you have a really good, flexible, but set in stone schedule that you know, right? And you can always change it if you want, but because you know your schedule, it's just not a mystery what you're going to eat the next meal or the next day or how to prep your food. Now, you're now ready to manipulate your macros scientifically to get very precise health and appearance results, potentially increasing your body weight, decreasing your body weight, losing fat, becoming healthier, so on and so forth. And you're going to be doing that by adding in macros or subtracting in macros from this really awesome, dependable schedule that you've constructed for yourself. You have a meal plan now. Congratulations. Changing it is easy. That would be our next video, but our next video is just tying up a few odds and ends before we move into actually changing macros. See you next time for the next video.